There you go. Now Hudson's gonna. You got it under control, man. You got it. All right.
I'll be reading Psalm 63, verses 1 through 4. You, God, are my God. Earnestly I seek you. I thirst for you. My whole being longs for you. In a dry and parched land where there is no water, I have seen you in the sanctuary and beheld your power and your glory. Because your love is better than life, my lips will glorify you. I will praise you as long as I live, and in your name I will lift up my hands.
Awesome. Thank you, Hudson. Great job. All right, now on to the lesson, right? And I'll try to keep it somewhat brief because I know we've already talked about a lot of things. But 21 years ago, today, in fact, May 7th, 2002, someone wanted to know what we were talking about. You can go to the next one. There you go.
It's easy to sum it up when you just talk about practice. We sitting here, I'm supposed to be a franchise player, and we're in here talking about practice. I mean, listen, we talking about practice. Not a game. We talking about practice. Not a game. Not the game that I go out there and die for and play every game like it's my last. Not the game. We're talking about practice, man. I mean, how silly is that? And we're talking about practice. I know I'm supposed to be there. I know I'm supposed to lead by example. I know that. And I'm not shoving it aside, like it don't mean anything. I know it's important. I do. I honestly do. But we talking about practice, man. What are we talking about? Practice? We talking about practice, man. We talking about practice. We talking about practice. We ain't talking about the game. We talking about practice, man. When you come in the arena and you see me play, don't you? You see me give everything I got, right? But we talking about practice right now. We talking about practice. Man, look, I hear you. It's funny to me too. I mean, it's strange to me too. But we talking about practice, man. We're not even talking about the game, the actual game, when it matters. We talking about practice.
So we'll know from where he's coming from.
You can go back. Well, if you go back, what will happen? There you go. Well, you can just stop right there. We'll just stay right there for a second. 21 years ago, today, that's hard to believe. One of the most iconic sports rants in history. It still makes us laugh. None of you seniors were even born yet. It gets played and replayed. It was a meme and a viral video before those things were even things. 21 years ago, he said practice 22 times in about 1 minute and 47 seconds or whatever that was. So what are we talking about today? Practice. Talking about practice. And just a quick refresher, if you don't follow basketball, or maybe you don't know who Allen Iverson was, he's been retired for a few years now. If you can go back, just click it one back. There you go, there's a list of his accolades. You may not be able to read all that, but it's kind of small up there because there's a bunch of them. Just know he was really, really talented. We see that rant and we quote it. We laugh at it, but it's really only part of a much bigger story that was going on. You can go to that next slide so we don't have to watch the GIF keep going over and over and over, or GIF, whatever you say it, whatever it is. Somebody more tech savvy will have to explain how to pronounce it. The second part of that interview doesn't get played near as much. We like that part, it's funny, and he says practice a lot. But just a little backstory, the Sixers, the Philadelphia 76ers, they had just lost their first round playoff series. Iverson was butting heads with his coach. Things weren't going well. He was scared he might be traded. And if that wasn't enough, Iverson's best friend, Rashawn, who was 29 years old, had his life taken from him right about the start of the basketball season. So this is happening at the end of the season. So at the very beginning of the season, his best friend's life had been taken. Iverson actually wore an armband on his arm that year that had his friend's initials on it, RA, and he would tap it before every free throw. And Iverson, in the second part of that interview, lets the media glimpse the storm that was battering his house that day. His friend's death had hung over his head throughout a long 82-game NBA season plus first round playoff series. And he couldn't shake the sadness. And the storm was rough. And a few days before his rant, actually, the trial for the accused who had taken the life of his friend had just started. And Allen was struggling. He was in the middle of a downpour. And according to ESPN, an article on there, it says, minutes after he jokes about practice, Iverson became more serious and vulnerable. This is what Allen Iverson said in the next part of that interview. I'm upset for one reason, because I'm in here. I lost my best friend. I lost him, and I lost this year. Everything is just going downhill for me. As far as just that, as far as my life. And then I'm dealing with this. My best friend is dead, and we lost. And this is what I have to go through for the rest of the summer until the season is all over again. We don't hear that part. We see the practice on here. All I can think about is, we're in here today talking about practice. And it wasn't that day that Allen Iverson didn't think practice was important. He was a ridiculously good NBA player. You don't make it that far without putting in the work, without countless hours of practice. It's just this, it's hard to practice something in the middle of chaos. Your actions in moments of stress have to be your reactions. It has to be built into your muscle memory. Enduring a crisis is not the time to decide you need to have a certain set of skills or be better at something, right? So it's important to put the practice in on the front end. So when the storms arise, you're prepared. So when times of uncertainty or transition or change or movement show up in your life, you have what it takes to get through it, right? People always say that practice makes perfect, right? That's a lie. That's a lie. Practice doesn't make you perfect. Practice makes you ready. You'll never be perfect, but you can be prepared. So Jesus also talked about practice one time. He stood on a mountainside outside of Capernaum, and he spoke to a crowd that had gathered there. And he began to teach them many things, right? You can read Matthew 5 through 7 to read all of these things he said. He laid out what a life lived for God looked like. He talked about the character traits that we should strive for, things like humility, mercy, and the desire to be pure in heart, among others. He encouraged compassion and generosity. He pled for us to pray and to fast and to trust. He told us to keep our word and to stay away from things that we knew would harm us and that he knew would harm us. He challenged us to love, and he challenged us to love those that wouldn't love us back. He told us that we had to be the salt and the light to a world desperately needing to see something different. It's this incredibly powerful sermon full of words. 10 pages. I've got a lot of notes in my Bible, but 10 pages of words in my Bible is what that sermon takes. But unless those words are put into practice, then to us, words are all they'll ever be. So Jesus, when he's getting to the end of his sermon and he's wrapping things up, he tells the crowd a simple, short story about something he would have been familiar with, building a house. Here's what he said. Therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house. Yet it did not fall, because it had its foundation on the rock. But everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who built his house on sand. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house, and it fell with a great crash. I'll tell you three things real quick about that story. Number one, building on the right foundation with the right set of blueprints is critical. You can build the nicest house on the block, but if it's built on the sand, it's eventually going to come crashing down. Your foundation matters. It has to be solid. You have to have a good base. You have to be firmly rooted. And you have to follow the blueprints. And we have the blueprints, and God gave us all that we need. We just got to build in the right spot, use the right blueprints, and involve God in the building process. Because if we don't follow the plans, if we don't involve Him, if we're not on the right foundation, our house is doomed anyway. Psalm 127:1 says this: unless the Lord builds the house, the builders labor in vain. That's what Pat read us earlier. Man, God has given us an amazing set of plans. He's asked us to trust Him with the process. I have to trust that He's not going to disappoint, that He'll deliver. It's who He is, and it's what He does. And also, just a side note, if when we read that story, just because you have a good foundation, just because you followed the right plans, just because you involved God in the building process, doesn't mean you get a free pass from the storms, right? Both the houses in Jesus' story, both of the houses endure the same storm. Both of them. We're all going to get rained on at some point. But the thing is, with practice, we can't wait until the storm is battering our house to decide, oh, I need to practice. Now is the time to build. Or to decide we've built in the wrong place. Or that we've used the wrong materials. Our foundation and what has been constructed up to that time of the storm determines how we're going to hold up to the storm that's currently in front of us, right? Like what we've constructed up to that point. So we have to be building now on the foundation of Jesus. And we have to be using good materials, which is what brings me to the second point, baby. Use good materials, right? Did you hear what Jesus said when He was telling the story? Those who hear my words and, right? That's a crucial conjunction. Don't miss that. Those who hear my words and put them into practice are like a wise man who built his house on a rock. And when the storms came and the torrent slammed against it, Luke says in his account of the story that the house was not shaken. Man, all the best advice in the world, not going to do you no good unless you put it into practice. Jesus can tell us the best materials to use in constructing our life. We can know the best materials to use in our house, but unless we hear what is needed and, right, then go out and use those materials, it won't have an impact on the strength of our structure. What we practice is going to be what comes to the surface when the storms come. I love the book of James. James just tells it like it is. It's a short book, but it's full of practical advice for what it looks like to build with good materials. And James doesn't pull any punches. When he first starts his book in verse 22 of chapter 1, he says, do not merely listen to the word, and so deceive yourself. Do what it says, right? And really, in all honesty, I usually know what the word says. And I have a pretty good idea of what the best building materials are. I'm just not always the best at choosing to build with them. Guys, you are our seniors, you are surrounded by a great cloud of witnesses who have poured solid, godly advice into your life for years now, showing you what to build your life with. And here's the thing that's so important. For our seniors, but really for all of us. Don't leave here and head out into the unknown and go into the real world and forget what you know. Don't leave and forget all the things you've practiced and all the things that have been poured into you. Remember what these good materials are. And remembering what they are is more important maybe now than ever, because you're about to get a lot more control in the building process, right? A lot more. So continue to build on the solid foundation of Jesus. I say continue because you've already been building on that foundation, right? It's not like this is a new thing. And use good materials to construct your house. Choose the best materials. Things like love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. Add in some humility and mercy and forgiveness and faith. And your home is going to stand against the toughest storms. You've had all these people teaching you how to practice, teaching you what building materials are best, and now you get to set your own practices and build your own structure. Don't abandon what you know to be true. Don't fall for Satan's gimmicks or his inferior product line. Continue to trust the one who wrote the blueprints, who made the materials list. And then the last point, guys, be willing to renovate. Because at some point, you're going to look around and realize that you did, in fact, construct part of your life with subpar materials. Don't fret, right? That's pretty normal. We've all done it. Everybody in this room. None of us escaped that. All of us have had to do a little remodel in our life. We never get the construction process perfect. We might realize that we used greed or lust or maybe anger or worry as we were building. We know ourselves pretty well. I could probably list a few areas right now in our life that need a little remodel. Whatever it is, please remember this important part of the sermon. You know a great carpenter who is an expert at renovation. And not only is renovation possible, it's encouraged. The carpenter knows exactly what it takes to tear out the old materials and create something brand new. He knows us and how we are built better than anybody because he wrote the blueprints. Allow him to renovate. It's what he's best at. Never shy away from letting him do the work. Most things, as handy as we are, we can't really fix ourselves anymore. But he can, right? And that's it. That's the lesson. So that's 3 quick points, right? Build on a solid foundation and use his plans. Use good materials. Build your life with the things that God tells us that we need to have to withstand the storms. And be willing to renovate when you look around and go, man, I need to allow God to shed some things from my life. As you seniors get ready to head off on your next adventure, the practice that you guys have put in has made you ready for this. Whatever you might face, whatever storms come. Your parents and grandparents and aunts and uncles and youth ministers and preachers and teachers have invested much time in helping you practice at the things that really matter. Helping you construct your life, showing you what materials to use and which ones to avoid. They have spent years pouring into you, teaching you to love others, helping you practice being kind, helping you to see when others are hurting and are in need of help, showing you what it looks like to forgive. They're ready for me to be being an example of what it means to follow in the footsteps of the Messiah. Like Iverson in basketball, y'all have spent many hours practicing. And these tools are going to come in handy when you start this next phase. Your foundation is strong. Your structure is secure. When storms come up, and they will, you're ready. Right? You're ready. with God, you will stand firm. You'll stand on His foundation. Guys, this morning, if you need to relocate your house so that it's built on a firmer foundation, or if you need to let God start some renovations in your heart, we want you to know that this is a place that will walk alongside you during the building or rebuilding process. If you need something, we're going to sing a song. If you need something, you can come down front. We've got people and elders here that would love to pray for you. If you want to put Christ on in baptism, the baptistry probably has water in it. Usually it does. The last baptism we did, it was not as deep as it should have been, but we got through it. But there are people here that love and care for you. And that's the other thing for you guys, you seniors. I want you to know that Ashley and I and this church family are here for you guys. Not just for the last 6 years, but for the future. If you guys ever need anything, we love you and we're here for you. And if you need anything this morning, come now as we stand and sing.